A bit of breaking news from the world of media. Now, I don't know whether to laugh or cry about this one because, well, it's about The View, which provides such an entertaining window into the world of the woke. Let's let Joy Behar tell us more.
And before we go on hiatus, we only have one more show after this. I'm allowed to say that, right?
Too late now.
So it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Before we go, I wanted to tell people that the tide is turning. The tide is turning, and things are changing.
Whoa, so The View is going on hiatus, but for how long? A day, a week, the whole summer? Who knows? I mean, first Colbert, now this. Where will we get moments like this one here when Whoopi Goldberg, a rich black lesbian allowed to walk the streets freely, says that gays and people of color have it just as bad in America as women and gays have it in the Islamic Republic of Iran?
But let's just remember, too, the Iranians literally throw gay people off of buildings. They don't adhere to basic human rights.
Listen, here's the thing. Let's not do that, because if we start with that, we have been known in this country to tie gay folks to the car.
Where the Iranian regime is today in 2025 is nothing compared to the United States.
Hanging black people. So
it is not even the same. I couldn't step during this.
Wait. That's not what you mean to say. It is the same.
Well, if this turns out to be anything more than a little summer holiday, I'm convinced that the left will, as with Stephen Colbert, start jumping at shadows and see the hand of Donald Trump in all of this. But before anyone gets too conspiratorial about this news, it's also worth noting that the program has become, well, let's just say increasingly niche. The View airs on free-to-air TV, but it is regularly beaten in the ratings by its Fox News competitor in the same time slot. And Fox, remember, is a subscription service you have to pay for, much like on Foxtel here in Australia. And saner leftists like Bill Maher have said that as far as these things go, The View isn't doing their side any favors. He says that Democrats, yes, Democrats, should do something about The View, which Maher says constantly broadcasts opinions that are, for lack of a better word, insane. But, of course, we live in a conspiratorial age, and at the moment it seems like both left and right, Democrats and Republicans, are locked in a contest of ideas. Not about how to save the country or make America great again, but over whose narrative of corruption is correct. On the left, and in some quarters on the right, we have the swirling controversy over the so-called Epstein files, which many believe contain a secret client list exposing wealthy and elite pedophiles who participated in all sorts of underground orgies and the like with underage girls at financier Jeffrey Epstein's Caribbean Pleasure Dome. And let's be clear, the White House, and particularly Attorney General Pam Bondi, have not made it easy, with the president essentially saying, "Why are we still talking about it? Can't we just forget about it?" And Pam Bondi herself playing all sorts of games with the files. First handing a bunch of conservative influencers binders full of nothing for the cameras months ago, and now saying, well, that there's not much they can release. And I'm sorry, but that's not good enough. But even if that's not good enough, don't let that be a distraction. Because if you get sucked into the narrative, you miss the other, I think, far bigger story. Because every day we talk about Jeffrey Epstein, we lose sight of the competing story, which is the deep state's attempt to use phony intelligence to undermine and attempt to end the first Trump presidency through bogus claims of Russian collusion before Trump was even inaugurated. Now, a lot of this has been known to us in some form for a while. The fact that the Hillary campaign and the Obama White House used a phony document known as the Steele dossier, paid for with Hillary campaign funds and using the Hillary campaign's lawyers, Perkins Coie, to trigger a government investigation, which was then leaked to the press, which then created an endless doom loop of further investigations and further headlines. This ultimately led to not just one, but two failed impeachments. And this is sort of old news. Yet what we're learning now is so much worse. In the last 24 to 48 hours, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has dropped out a remarkable set of documents. Not only have we learned that the Obama White House tore up a presidential daily briefing just after the election that concluded Russia did not interfere in the election. And this, by the way, was presumably so that this document didn't wind up being seen by President-elect Trump, who had begun to receive these briefings as part of the transition process. But also, this is the really amazing thing here. According to a declassified report, which was originally written in 2020, and which I cannot stress enough we would never have known about had Gabbard not released it, the whole Russia thing was not only a scam, but also this report laid out that Russia, presumably through a hack of the Democrat National Committee's email accounts, had obtained its most damaging information about Hillary Clinton. And while Moscow's goal was not to see one candidate or the other elected, they just wanted to interfere in the process and mess things up, they did presume, like almost everybody else at the time, that Hillary would be elected. And here's what's even worse. The Russians were waiting for her to take office so that they could then drop out the really bad stuff they found. This included allegations that Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, offered various organizations, including what are described as major religious groups, State Department funding in exchange for supporting her campaign. Russian intelligence had worked out that the Democrats were also sitting on information about Hillary Clinton's health that was, quote, extraordinarily alarming, unquote, and was being kept in the, quote, unquote, strictest secret. The report noted intense psycho-emotional problems, referenced uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness by the First Lady, a regime of heavy tranquilizers, and a, quote, thirst for power. And for everyone who wondered about this time that Hillary Clinton all but fell into a van and had to be helped by aides at a 9/11 memorial function, the report also said she suffered from deep vein thrombosis, diabetes, and ischemic heart disease. But all this was being kept from the public, though the Russians had worked it out. They also found that CIA Director John Brennan and the intelligence community misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess, quote, Russian plans and intentions, which falsely suggested the dossier had intelligence value. Brennan overruled senior CIA officers who challenged the intelligence community's claims, stating, "We don't have direct information that Putin wanted to get Trump elected." In other words, again, it was all a stitch-up. Now, Gabbard laid it out in a remarkable press conference, though, coincidentally, just at an opportune moment, CNN decided it needed to start talking over her. Have a look.
Multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th.
We've been listening there to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, continuing on what has now been a multi-day effort, not only with public statements like this, but release of documents, to attempt to back up the quite extreme allegation that President Obama is guilty of treason and that he worked in some sort of conspiracy with Hillary Clinton.
Treason? Well, let's be realistic about that one. But did Obama and Hillary work with official Washington to spread bogus stories and undermine Trump, even to try and get him removed from office? Well, I'm sorry, but that's an open and shut case. We now know. And as far as I'm concerned, people need to know about this. They need to know about this so that they understand how things really work in Washington. And assuming this is all true, and I believe it is, if they were smart enough to see the danger that this sort of behavior might pose to their side in the future, well, I think the Democrats, too, might want to sit up and take notice, lest something similar happen to them one day.